reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MMO Reporter. This is episode 274. My name is Bill, and with me is not Chris. Chris is off saving the planet Neptune from Thargoids. In his stead, though, we have PAX Prime correspondent for MMO Reporter and supreme expert at not being Chris, Jason. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hi, Bill.
Hello. How are you doing this fine week?
I'm doing great. Really looking forward to the end of the week, as always. It's
Yep.
pretty close, which is MMO Reporter time, which is always a nice part of the week.
Yeah, we're building up that playlist, getting set to play a few games, getting ready to completely destroy my life with my Civ 6 addiction again, and it's going to be good.
Good luck. I'll send food.
Yeah. Well, it's going to have to be delivered straight to my desk, otherwise it's send it to someone who's actually going to eat it.
So I'll send food with a robot to deliver it from the door to your desk.
There we go. Oh, a Roomba. Perfect.
Perfect.
This is a plan. Oh, this could actually be a little bit of a business, a Civ 6 survival guide. A little bit of cereal bars packed on the back of a Roomba that just hunts around for signs of reduced heartbeats around the house, and this could be it could save humanity and even make $1 or $2.
Yeah, pair it with a blood sugar monitor or something like that, and I think you have a Kickstarter in the making here.
There you go. Chris, write that down. So anyway, let's jump into it, and before we start planning too much on our 6 time, what have you been playing this week, Jason?
Well, this week, I think just like the rest of us, we've all been pretty enamored with Guild Wars 2 lately. I managed to finish all of the current season content finally with my really busy schedule, and so I'm really happy about that.
Well
and I
done.
also spent some time digging into Star Citizen, because I've been a backer of Star Citizen since the Kickstarter, and I'm still staring with bated breath. I am not disillusioned. I understand everything that they have been going through, and so I was excited that they had some new stuff to do after CitizenCon. And so I spent some time playing Star Citizen over the last week.
So, as you may or may not know, this show's been a little bit tough on Star Citizen. We've kind of tended the community seems to be a little bit polarized between Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, for example, or not
Yes.
for example, in reality. And the needle's been pointing a little bit more towards the Elite Dangerous side, to put it mildly. So tell us, since you're actually in there playing Star Citizen, obviously following up a little bit on CitizenCon, what's jumping out at Star Citizen? Is it? Do you think it's getting some traction now, or is it still really early?
It's still really early. There's no two ways about it. Elite Dangerous launched as a far simpler game with a far simpler premise, who is in the same vein, meaning it's a space game that has some very similar gameplay components, but when it comes to what the developer's intention is to do with the game, they're very different entirely. I think the big comparisons early on between Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen came when you saw what was released at the time for Star Citizen. Elite Dangerous launched, and they looked to have feature parity, as it were, and you could do kind of similar things with each game, and Elite Dangerous is far more along in the process. I think what the Cloud Imperium Games crew in all of their various studios are doing is something that is far bigger than the one game that they are building with Star Citizen. When you hear them talk about the effort they put into every little tiny piece, it's unreal. And I think that when they're finally done with this, it will show, and we will see really what the vision was that they were trying to go for. So I can't really blame them for being perfectionists, as I tend to be a bit of one myself, and I also tend to fall into the same trap where sometimes your release dates just slip a while, and that's how it goes. But they've been very open with us about where they're at in the process and how things are going, and so I definitely don't think it's vaporware. I definitely would love to see something released very soon from them, but I understand why they haven't, and that's okay.
So you said you've been able to jump into it. Now, one of the things we've
Mhm.
actually complained about on the show here a little bit is that the entry threshold to get into Star Citizen now, with the clear caveat that it's still early, still alpha, still
Very,
not
very early.
done.
Mhm.
But if you did and you really wanted to get in, like what's the package, or how did you jump into it? Were you a Kickstarter backer, or were you did you buy one of the post Kickstarter packages, or what?
Yeah, it was post Kickstarter when I did get in, just
Mhm,
after, I think, a couple of days after Kickstarter was when I finally heard about it, and so I was on that very first wave of after crowdfunding they did,
mhm,
and I bought just like the $40 basic package. It came with an Aurora, the super ultra newbie ship,
mhm.
and I've left it there. And my goal is to try to earn my way through the game. I don't want to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on big expensive ships that I could buy with real money now,
Yeah.
when I could really earn that in game for myself. So that's my goal there. But yeah, I backed really early, and so this week, they did the free fly where you could fly any ship that was in engine and ready to go. And so I spent many hours fighting the server crashes to try to fly just about everything that they had released, just to get my fingers into it and to see what it was like to fly some of those different ships.
Oh, okay. And are you in love with anything else? Is your Aurora feeling clunky now?
Well, they've done a very good job showing the strengths of all of the different ships. There are sometimes I'll fly a ship and I'll be wishing for a particular characteristic that my Aurora had, and sometimes I will look at a ship and go, man, that'd be really nice to fly around right now. It's
Hmm.
only $40. Maybe I should know. And I slap my hand and I kind of stop myself and I go, no, don't do it. Don't, do what you had intended to do in the beginning.
So you're
But I
you're
appreciate
you're
the
not
opportunity
tempted
to.
to drop $2,700 and get the full fleet pack or anything like that. Or no, pardon me,
Oh,
$15,000 is apparently the top end fleet pack.
I guess what I would say is that it would be lovely if I were at a place in my life where I could just spend $15,000 on whatever I pleased. But that does not reflect reality, so I will stick with my nice $40 basic
Hmm.
ship, which does everything, even if it doesn't do it quite as well as some of the other ships will do it at this point. I'll never make it to the top of a leaderboard with an Aurora, but I still do have a good time when I get in to play some Arena Commander.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
Cool. So, anything else this week, or anything else you jumped into?
just Guild Wars 2, which I
Yeah.
think you've spent some time in as well. I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to the Halloween event going on here.
Yep.
I haven't had a chance to get into that, but like I say, I finished the season 3 content, and I'm waiting on bated breath for episode 3 to come out. So,
Yep, I'm actually in exactly the same boat as you are. I actually just finished the story. I actually did it out of order because the night that we
oh,
actually, or pardon me, that I was playing with Jack and Sammy and Chris, we did episode 2, and I hadn't
yes.
done episode 1 yet. So I actually cycled back. I did episode 1 and finished up,
Mhm.
and this is the first time I've ever been 100% caught up with the Guild Wars 2 story. I've always, like, when season 2 came out, I hadn't quite finished season 1. When season 3, or when Heart of Thorns launched, I still hadn't finished season 2. So I'm actually quite pleased with myself here. So that was fun.
That's great.
I'm loving the new maps that they're adding with each zone. Like, I mean, granted, it's only been 2 chapters so far, but Bloodstone Fen, I actually did all the achievements for. I finished that out and everything. That was a really neat zone once I really started getting into it. I still haven't done all the achievements for Ember Bay yet, but I'm getting there, and I'm really enjoying that zone too. And I'm loving the way they changed it up between Bloodstone Fen and Ember Bay. Bloodstone Fen I found to be very vertical in its design in terms of layers. Like, there was like 4 or 5 discrete layers, probably more actually, to Bloodstone Fen.
Hmm.
Whereas Ember Bay is, I think, a bigger zone, but there's obviously still a lot of verticality to it in terms of the flight access and everything like that. But it's basically 2 layers. There's a ground, and then there's up in the mountains, and that's about it.
Right. That was one of the things that they had mentioned during their very limited PAX reveal, uh, was that they had feedback from the community in some ways where the verticality was getting a little frustrating for some of the more casual players that weren't absorbing that.
Hmm.
And so I think they wanted to make a shift back to a more traditional map to try to make it approachable in some ways to
Yeah.
parts of the community that maybe felt underserved with
Yeah.
Bloodstone Fen.
Yeah, and I think
Now,
it's a good thing. I don't want them to give up on the verticality of Guild Wars 2, because especially with the whole, I actually like the gliding mechanic in the game, so I would love for them to get more out of that. But it's nice that they're not going to the well there every time, and that's how they make a map, is by going crazy by with verticality, that
right,
can still make a horizontal map if they
right,
choose to.
yes. Now, as I recall, you've got all of your gliding masteries complete at this point.
Yes, which makes
Yeah,
life so much better. I never even realized how much ley line gliding meant to me until I actually had it.
right. So I have not, and I think that one of the reasons you've managed to finish all of those achievements in Bloodstone Fen is because of that. And I've still got, probably a couple weeks worth of career events to run before I
Yeah,
will be able to finish all of my masteries. But uh,
yeah, it's
I'm with
it's
you. It's great, but you do struggle a little if you don't have all of those. It becomes a
yeah,
much harder game to play in those zones.
yeah.
And
And I can understand why more casual players would be frustrated with the
yes,
verticality, because clearly a more casual player probably isn't going to have all those flight masteries yet. So,
right.
uh, definitely a good idea if you've got the time, if you've got the experience, and you're not sure where to put your mastery points in Guild Wars 2. Flight is always a good choice. You can't
Gliding
go
is the
wrong.
first. Do the
Yeah,
minimum that you can get away with in every other tree,
yeah,
because you do need some of the other very first tier ones. But boy, the gliding one will just serve you over and over and over again,
yeah. Plus,
a
it's fun.
thousandfold.
It's basically the once you get to leyline gliding, it's basically like having a roller coaster at your disposal. It's nice.
I
So
can't wait.
so anyway, the only other thing I actually played this week was World of Warcraft.
Hmm.
Chris and I had our weekly dungeon run, which was a just barely a success. We had wipe after wipe after wipe, doing our first heroic level dungeon. But we did beat everything eventually. We only, yep, I had no armor that was broken completely, but I had almost everything in red. So I was pretty beat up by the end of it. But had lots of fun there. I'm
Good.
starting to kind of level off with World of Warcraft. I was really hyped up on it for, oh geez, probably, well, ever since the release. So a good 6-7 weeks I was riding high on World of Warcraft, which is still pretty good. But I'm feeling like I'm just leveling off now. I need to get some Guild Wars 2 back in my life. I need little bit of Elite Dangerous. I need a little bit of variety. I've decided now. So I'm still into WoW. I'm not hating it, but it's not the obsession that it was on expansion release. So Legion is still, I think, the best expansion that they've done in, oh geez, at least since Wrath of the Lich King.
I have to be honest, and completely truthful. The last time I played World of Warcraft was during the vanilla WoW days,
Oh wow,
and so
no
I'm
pun
not
intended.
really
Okay, a
an
little bit
expert to
pun intended.
speak on the state of to speak on the state of the game right now. But uh, I don't see myself going back.
Were
I went from WoW and I played Rift for a long time.
mm-hmm,
Which is where I met all of you fine folks, and we
mm-hmm,
played together for years and years, doing Rift things, and
yeah,
and honestly, the MMO that I've stumbled into is Guild Wars 2, just because of the gameplay and because I feel like it's an evolution on the trend. But tell me, I mean,
yep.
what is it about that expansion in WoW that really drew you in that you seem to be tapering off now?
to to be perfectly honest, and this isn't the most flattering thing for WoW, is it's nostalgia that brought me back. So I would argue that if you're somebody that played vanilla and drifted away from it because it didn't really grab you, it's there's not very much that World of Warcraft has added since then that's going to change it. I mean, it's a wildly different game, don't get me wrong, but they play very heavily on what the game was like back in vanilla WoW days,
Right.
or in Burning Crusade, and kind of the early iterations of World of Warcraft. So, and that's what really brought me back in. I jumped into Legion on day one. I started hitting quest mobs. I was enjoying the cities that I'd explored through before, getting some nostalgia on places that I've played in before and everything like that, and really just carried on with the adventure from there. So I don't think World of Warcraft is going to be getting many new players for the rest of its life, but it seems to be very good at bringing back old players every time it wants to throw out a new round of content. So
Definitely. And to their credit, I mean, they were the standard. They were the juggernaut, and are probably still. I don't know the numbers, but they are such a force, and so many people love that game that even if I did not get drawn into it in the same way, I definitely have a massive amount of respect for everything they've done, and what they continue to do with their community to keep the players impressed and pleased with the game after so many years.
yeah. For many years, they were the model, and everybody was trying to make the next World of Warcraft.
Right.
And I think it's the MMO stage has kind of evolved to the point now where World of Warcraft is a model, and people borrow some things from World of Warcraft, but then they borrow from other stuff. They borrow, like you can see, even just going back into the good old days, you're pulling from a lot of those PvP heavy games like Shadowbane, and that kind of thing is starting to make a comeback now. There's a lot of Star Wars Galaxy stuff that's getting pulled into a lot of the new sandbox games that's coming in. So it was a necessary evolution. I think that the industry's kind of moved on from World of Warcraft as the gold model standard to really starting to pull from the other kind of historical things. And there's lots of new stuff coming too. I'm not saying that everything new is just old new again kind of stuff.
Right.
Butchered that phrase, but
there are 30 or better successful MMOs on the market from publishers far and wide, and the reason that those can all exist is because there are that many models that will work for people, and they will engage us all with different ideas. So
yeah, I would argue things were lean for a while when everyone was really aiming for that, or trying to replicate what World of Warcraft already did. But once the industry kind of moved past that, I think we've seen some really neat ideas, and we're getting into a second golden age, if you will. Anyway, that's the optimist. That's the Bill the Optimist coming through. So
I like that, Bill.
Yeah, I'm glad. So other people that I hope like it are actually all the people that are looking over at our Patreon page. If you head over to www.patreon.com/MMO Reporter, we have some amazing contributors over there at Patreon, and we love every one of you. Thank you very much for helping us keep everything on the air, helping us bring in supreme talent like Jason when that slacker Chris isn't willing to show up for a show. So everyone at Patreon, you're awesome. If you want to be one of those awesome patrons, like I said, patreon.com/MMO Reporter.
Now that I've tried to talk to you and make you understand, you can't out-threat the tank and just pew-pew and think you'll last the fight and anger me. Wipe the group and never clear the rain. More than deeds is all you have to do to make the raid.
So in the news this week, we're actually going to start outside of the MMO world, or at least a little bit outside the MMO world. Nintendo made a big drop today where they released a teaser video for the Nintendo Switch. This is what has been referred to as the Nintendo NX for quite a while now. This is the follow-up for the Nintendo Wii U. We'll have a link to the video in the show notes here, but I imagine everybody will have probably seen it by then. This kind of exploded on the internet today. Basically, what we're looking at is a new Nintendo console that is a handheld that docks to, or it has a dock that connects to your TV, and basically is kind of, it seems to be selling itself as a smooth transition between mobile handheld console and big screen gaming experience. The video kind of shows off the handheld controllers being the very little Wii-like wands with very basic D-pad and button controllers on it that morph into, when you're in big screen mode, into a more kind of a larger paddle type game
A
controller.
more traditional handheld controller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the video will make perfect sense and everything. But they're showing a lot of shared gaming experiences. Multiple people crowded around this little tiny screen, being able to play. Lots of they showed several scenes of switches connected up, so you might have two, or they showed one scene where you had, I believe it was two people with their Nintendo Switches sitting wirelessly playing the same basketball game. They had another.
They did this. It was this clever ad hoc networking thing, kind of like you get on a 3DS, where you take this like tablet out of the dock and go play with your friends.
Yeah, and I think that's
It's extremely clever.
It is, and it actually, to me, really speaks to Nintendo understanding where their bread gets buttered, kind of thing. They have owned handheld gaming for a long time, until people started playing games on their iPhones and that kind of thing, basically. And even then, with that mobile gaming revolution there, the 3DS is still a super strong platform. Handheld gaming from Nintendo is still easily the strongest in terms of anyone, in terms of like quote unquote traditional console gaming. So Nintendo really seems to understand what they needed to do, and especially when you compare it to what they did with the Wii U. The Wii U was this, except orders of magnitude clunkier and worse.
Yeah, this is an interesting. So I observed a couple things when I watched the video. The first time I watched it, I just kind of sat there and bounced up and down in my chair for about 5 minutes and went, "Oh man, this is so cool!" And then I sat here and I thought about it, and I realized, you have the other players like Microsoft and Sony with their consoles. They're still making this very traditional, I say traditional, 15 years worth of gaming console development. And so, we would see the Xbox 360 and now the Xbox One and the PS4 that have high-end graphics, very complex AAA titles with, there's kind of a level of expectation there. Sony's now got the PlayStation VR product out, and Nintendo is still making something that, and don't take this the wrong way because I don't think this is a bad thing, it looks like they've evolved the GameCube hardware again to work on a portable tablet that you can dock to your television or take to the park and play with your friends.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I think that's actually a really good comparison when you're talking about in the sense of Microsoft and Sony. Their path is very predictable. Like, you could have gone back in time 2 years and said, "Oh, this is what the PlayStation 4 is going to look like in a couple of years." Clearly, they're both going down the path of VR. Clearly, they're both going down the path of just trying to push as high a frame rate and as beautiful a game at you as they possibly can. Not a bad goal, but predictable. Nintendo is a wild card. They have several times now come out with products that you didn't even really conceive very much until they actually hit the market. So, I mean, the Switch is a little, like I said, it's a little bit derivative of the Wii U, but if it actually if the expectations of the kind of the smooth docking, undocking experience and the smooth kind of controller hardware and how that kind of clips onto the experience and off again and that kind of thing, if it's as smooth as the demo shows, which probably isn't the case, but if it's even close, then this is a neat product.
This is Nintendo. Nintendo's very good at what they do, and even with the Wii and the early Wii controllers, they did have some motion tracking weirdness, but it was very polished.
Well, when you consider the Wii is now, almost 10 years old, that's, I mean, when you consider that was a decade ago,
Yes.
Nobody has outstripped that by leaps and bounds. I mean, it's better today for
Yeah.
sure, but it's not end of the world better. It's not making it's not like it's not like the Wii is Stone Age stuff right now.
No, and and the games are still enjoyable to play if you have a group of friends over,
Hmm.
or at least at my house, if groups of friends come over, we will still get out boom blocks from time to time and
Yep.
throw it up there and
My
become
kids
maybe slightly inebriated and have some fun.
my kids still pull the Wii out and they have a ball with Wii Fit and Wii
Hmm.
Sports and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's got a lot of durability, and I mean of course they're showing off classics. They have Mario in there. They've got another Link game. It was interesting that they had Skyrim in there. It looked like, or sure looked like Skyrim, unless you can correct me on that.
I'm gonna go with it's Skyrim because my brain wants to believe, even if it's not quite Skyrim.
You don't
I'll
you
take it.
don't really think of Skyrim as a Nintendo game, but here we are. So, yeah, and then obviously NBA shoot around that kind of thing. So they showed off some interesting titles there.
They
yeah.
did, yes.
I thought it was interesting too that this is I didn't notice this announcement until after I'd watched the video that the hardware in there is actually being built by NVIDIA. So this is the first time NVIDIA is really getting back into the console game in forever. I'm trying to remember when what last console NVIDIA was in. Was that even the Xbox or?
NVIDIA was in, yeah, they were in the original Xbox. You had something kind of akin to, say, like a GeForce 3.
Mhm.
And I honestly can't remember off the top of my head now that you brought it up what was in the Xbox 360 or
Well,
even the
360
Xbox One.
was an AMD card or AMD/ATI, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that seems to sound,
And
that sounds correct.
PS2 was their cell no, PS3 was originally the cell processor, wasn't it?
Right. Sony's kind of done their own thing forever
Yeah.
in those ways. They haven't levered, even if they're using a chip fab with somebody else, they're
Yeah.
kind of levering their own technology to do that.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's even the PS4 it's technically an AMD graphics processor in there, but it's heavily Sony-ified.
Not anything you would ever see close to what you'd find in a PC that AMD's making.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But yeah, Nintendo going with the Tegra is a really interesting choice.
mhm.
NVIDIA did
Because
Tegra,
nobody else is doing it right now, are they?
the Shield.
Other than
I mean-
NVIDIA and their own Shield,
Yeah.
I haven't seen any Tegra devices in quite a while. Now, to be fair, they describe this this is a very customized Tegra processor,
Mhm.
and it's much more akin to a GeForce card than, say, what they've been putting into the Shield and that kind of thing. That's what the Ars Technica article I read was saying. So,
Yeah, time will tell with this. The Tegra, if I'm kind of just sitting here, with my C-suite executive hat on, it's like, well, what could we pick? Oh, well, Tegra, system on chip sort of deal, and just put that in there and be done with it. And so there's a lot of things that make sense about that approach.
Mhm.
And I think the Tegra is a perfectly capable chip. However, what's interesting is that, you have years and years of Nintendo developers that don't have any idea what to do with this sort of a hardware design,
Mhm.
and it's not really commonly used. So I wonder if that has any development implications, or if Nintendo's going to, because of either their customizations or because of other black magic wizardry they're pulling off behind the scenes, we don't know what kind of an impact that might have on titles released
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know that there's the standards. There's going to be Zelda games. There's going to be Mario games as well. Probably another evolution of platformer and that kind of thing. So there's a certain stable that's always going to be there.
Yeah,
it's the new stuff. Like that's always a bit of the criticism with Nintendo is they're very good at recycling the stuff that they've already done well. But it's going to be interesting to see if anyone actually latches on to, or any new blood really latches on to Nintendo and catches on big.
But this is really interesting. I am excited to try one someday when I get a chance, and it probably will be something that I own. I think that this could be something I could spend a couple of bucks on and be pretty happy with to have around the house.
Well, that'll be the interesting thing too, is if this gets released at a Nintendo quote unquote price point, or if it gets released as a competitive thing to Xbox and PS4.
Time will tell. I'll be following it for sure.
We'll be interested, yeah. So
Well, have you heard about what Guild Wars, in addition to their Halloween events, they've got some other shiny news going on? Have you heard about this yet today?
I have. Tell me though, please.
Yes, so we have some new legendary armor to go with their legendary weapons. We had a story drop, and what we see is a quick little 1-minute video showing someone like a warrior or a heavy armor wearer in animated armor, which is really, really cool. And ArenaNet has pitched us now that they are going to be releasing legendary armor, which one would assume means that it will be as hard to build as the legendary weapons. But based on the preview we saw today, it looks darn near as cool, if not just as cool as the legendary weapons we see.
Mm-hmm. I loved it. Like the it's got this kind of Transformers effect to it, where when you step into combat, the armor pieces move and make your character look bigger and more imposing and more spiky and stuff like that, and it looks really impressive.
It does. Very impressive.
It's coming from, so the video or the article was actually dropped by a member of the Guild Wars 2 raid team, so I think it's probably safe to say that this is going to be a raiding reward, which is a bit of a switch for Guild Wars 2, because in that most other things that in the game or in the game like high-end rewards have usually been achievable through a bunch of different game modes, whether you wanted to do world exploration or dungeons or world versus world or that kind of thing. Most of the stuff at least contributed, like even like the legendary weapon system right now, you have to do a little bit of everything to get a legendary weapon. So I'd be a little surprised if legendary armor was a raiding only thing, but it wouldn't knock my socks off either.
I would not be surprised if you were expected to participate in raids at some level to be able to get this armor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they've outdone themselves with the graphics quality on this. You know, just again, it's one of those videos like the Switch video. I kind of just watched it and then I just stuck YouTube on repeat and let it play over and over and over and over. And I keep watching these animations, and I know that like when you see the legendary weapons in game, I still kind of will maybe follow a character around a little bit just to see it, because there's no way that in my life I would ever have the time to devote to building a legendary weapon. It will, even if I started today, it would still take me years even to get it done. So I don't think that this is an
I've
item
had a
that,
legendary weapon as a goal now for, I think I've actually been working on the achievements for about a year and a half now. And I still have a long ways to go. It's heavy commitment. And the interesting thing, I was kind of thinking about this after the fact though, they showed the armor off as kind of this complete set where everything was transforming as you were stepping into combat and everything like that. Which kind of made me think that when you're earning your legendary armor, you're probably not earning it piece by piece. Like because if you had to earn an entire set of legendary armor, that would be like getting 6 legendary weapons to complete your set. And
to be fair, I mean, definitely if they tried to pitch it that way, I think it would be quite a large community cry out for the amount of effort and time required to do that. So, you know, there's a couple other ways that Guild Wars has applied character looks.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may use the outfit system to be able, like, you'll build your legendary armor, you'll get the 6 pieces, but maybe to display it, you know, just when you're done, you get the legendary outfit that you put into that slot, and you can push the button to turn on your outfit.
And that's what I'm sort of thinking is I'm wondering if they need to be linked pieces. Like you can't equip one without equipping the other 6 pieces somehow, or there's going to be some kind of mechanic around that. So I almost hope that's the case. I can't see legendary armor as the kind of thing you want to mix and match anyway. It would look really silly if you're wandering around with one, like if your arm piece is transforming as you run into combat, while you're in a fight, or if your boots are transforming as you step into a fight and everything else is just kind of sitting there like regular armor.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty safe assumption to me to make.
Yeah.
But, again, they've only shown the heavy. They don't have any medium or light armor content to show us yet. It's
Yeah.
not complete. Uh,
So I think
again,
this is early.
details
I think they're
they've shown
riding
us
a little bit on the wave that the latest release of or I believe it was the legendary mace that they just announced a little while ago. They're really trying to hammer home the fact that, hey, we actually haven't given up on legendary stuff. We just paused it for a while.
Yeah, I believe that it would take them a long time to come up with a really good, clean way to do legendary armor because, when you have legendary weapons, well, you can make one of every kind of weapon and sort of formalize that a little bit, and that's fine. But when it comes to armor, they've obviously had to completely rethink how they're going to do the progression to building a set of legendary armor. So,
Well, and it's a completely different game too. Like when
Yeah.
your weapons just have to be kind of resized to match up with your character model. Armor needs to fit a skinny Azura and a fat Norn and a Char and it's there. I have a feeling that's probably where a lot of the slowdown has been happening in designing that armor. But anyway, this is actually a really big thing because this is something Guild Wars 2 has been waiting for since the game launched almost.
right. I will say, I still kind of find it funny when I look at, Char wearing light armor. It's a pretty entertaining time sometimes to see some of the robes
Yeah.
made to fit around that model. So,
Let's be real. It's a cat in a dress.
yeah, okay, yeah, but yeah, pretty much.
And there's some adorable videos in the internet for that. So
There really are.
There's somebody's obviously looking for that. So I think it's okay.
I think that's just fine too. But hopefully we will not see the cat in a dress syndrome when it comes to the legendary armor.
Yeah. No. That's going to be the interesting thing because especially medium armor in this game has been trench coats, and more trench coats. I think if they released a legendary trench coat here, the world is going. The vitriol spewing out of the Guild Wars 2 subreddit is going to be. You'll be able to smell it from anywhere.
Yeah, we'll crash the forum servers just from the sheer number of support tickets put in to try to get them to change it.
Just trim off my stupid trench coat.
Could it be a pea coat? It could be a pea coat. That would be all
just
right.
want to wear a shirt. I just want to wear a leather jacket. There you go. Big, nasty, studded leather jacket where the studs all light up when you're, I don't know. Anyway, no, this is why I don't design armor for a living.
Perhaps that's why they released the heavy armor first, so that we didn't have to see the dress and trench coats, and we could focus on the really cool looking heavy armor.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a little bit by design. So, anyway, so legendary armor coming up soon. Just moving on a bit here, we're going to talk a little bit about our other sponsors here on MMO Reporter, in addition to our lovely Patreon people. We'd also like to give a shout out to Audible. If you're into audiobooks, if you're into getting free audiobooks, head over to audiblepodcast.com/MMO Reporter. Sign up there, and you will be able to get yourself a 1 month free trial with Audible, which is going to get you a download credit for any audiobook available to you through Audible and helps us out a little bit as well. So check that out at audiblepodcast.com/MMO Reporter. Also, if you're looking to build yourself a fat new virtual reality workstation, head on over to Doghouse Systems, doghouse-systems.com, and build up your rig of choice, and when you're all done and ready to hit that buy button, use the coupon code MMO Reporter to get Doghouse to throw an extra 120 gig SSD in there for you on MMO Reporter. So check that out, doghouse-systems.com.
So I ask, please don't delete my guy after beta. Please don't crush that part of my soul. Please don't delete my guy after beta. Please, my guy makes me feel whole. Please don't delete my guy after beta.
All the way up to 50, baby.
Please don't crush that part of my soul.
8 hours per day.
In other news today, actually no, this is MMO news. It's certainly tied in. The Screen Actors Guild, the Screen Actors Guild branch that represents video game voice actors. So the SAG-AFTRA, the American Federation of Television Radio Artists, is going on strike. They have been negotiating with a cabal of some of the biggest game developers out there, like Disney, like Activision, WB Games, EA, and a host of others, trying to put together a standard contract for their actors, including things like trying to set standards for pay bonuses for games that are strong sellers, trying to get some safety considerations in there for stunt coordinators for actors that are doing motion capture and that kind of thing, as well as regulations around voice recording sessions to kind of protect voice actors from having to do very long, very strenuous recording sessions, which when you're a voice actor, and especially when you're affecting a really harsh voice, if you've got to do that for 8 hours a day every day, you're going to basically ruin your voice here pretty quick.
Absolutely. And certainly, unlike with some, I mean, once you've kind of destroyed your voice, you're sitting it out for a week because you can't make that character's voice anymore. It's not possible for you to actually, it's just like taking a sick day, you can't.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even just that character's voice. I mean, I think if your career is a voice actor, you've got to make other voices as well too. So if you get one really strenuous session, that can actually have a domino effect of everyone else. So I actually have a lot of empathy for some of the things that they're looking for here. So it's kind of interesting. I'm sure we're going to get some kind of resolution to this at some point. It was the interesting counter to this is that the games industry, or the people negotiating on the other games are on the management half, or games management half, are saying that this voice actors guild is actually only about 25% of the actors that they employ, which I'm sure is a
Yes.
reduced number, but it's still interesting that the actors union really hasn't busted into a lot of control yet, as in terms of the talent that gets hired for this. So it just kind of bespeaks voice acting in games as being a fairly immature field. I mean, relative to television, radio, movies, that kind of thing.
To others.
Obviously.
Yeah, I think it's good that it's getting some recognition, because the people that, I mean, we've all been through games, and I'll bring up Guild Wars 2 again. It seems to be the theme of the night here, but the voice acting in Guild Wars 2 is fantastic. And the people that do those voices, they do a really great job. And we've all played games where we've really hated the voice acting. It's just been atrocious, and you go through it and you think, my God, is this person's first time? Is this... Did they use a Fiverr to get this done? I'm not sure what's going on, but it's been unenjoyable. And so the people that do this, that are represented in this case, I'm actually pretty in support of this move that's going on. The voice actors that have dedicated their careers to this do great work for all of us, and they deserve as much recognition as their counterparts that spend their days doing TV and movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a growing industry. I mean, clearly voice acting in games, I mean, if you even went back 10 years in the past, it's changed wildly since then. And it's a little bit understandable that these kind of provisions haven't necessarily been considered very much before, but clearly needed now. I think it's part of a natural progression, and kind of like you said, the prevalence of voice acting out there is high, and it's kind of one of those things where if it's good, you might take note and say, oh, that was really cool, but it's not going to necessarily own the game experience. But if it's bad, it's going to ruin that game experience and take you right out of any immersion you might have. So it's almost like it's more of a negative prevention kind of thing to get decent voice acting in there than it is to really put a game over the top. But I mean, when you're talking about MMO examples, the big one for me is Star Wars: The Old Republic. That is probably the most heavily voiced MMO that I've ever played, and it's really good. Like, I agree. There's many pieces that happen in there that certainly rival the prequel movies. But even good Star Trek acting I would say that some of the Old Republic stuff rivals in that.
Yeah, there was a lot of things about the Old Republic that drove me just absolutely up the wall, but the voice acting was definitely a high point. They
Well,
they had the story together. They
mhm,
had a plan and an idea and well thought out characters, regardless of who's um, in some cases, the voice actors will really help flesh out these characters when the game
mhm.
studios haven't. And I don't know if BioWare and EA, had a staff that was building these characters, or if it was the voice actors, but everybody just worked together great on that game. And really, I agree with you, did just a bang up job.
It's very strong, and it's yeah. Anyway, I've always kind of thought that the Old Republic was an amazing single player game that
Yeah.
unfortunately had a bunch of interesting multiplayer choices tacked onto it.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
anyway, so starting on October 21st, I'm going to just list off all the companies that are going to have job action against them by the SAG-AFTRA, and that's what I'm going to call them from now on because that is a huge acronym. It's Activision Publish. I'm going to try that again. Activision Publishing, Blindlight, Corpse of Discovery or Core of Discovery Films, Disney Character Voices, which is kind of interesting because I actually thought Disney was kind of stepping away from the game development space, but they're certainly named in this job action. Electronic Arts, for mostly interactive, Insomniac Games, Interactive Associates, Take-Two Interactive, VoiceWorks, and WB Games are all the ones that are targeted. So the nice thing is this job action doesn't affect, or it's not targeting indie studios, small studios, or anything like that. Actually, if you go to the SAG site, they're announcing kind of standard rates or standard agreements they've put together for low budget video game development because they want to be able to speak to those games that have relatively small budgets and still get their actors participating in there. And that's probably going to be a net positive thing in the end for small game developers as well as
Yeah.
the SAG because they get a little bit more presence in the game industry.
Looking at the strike notice, I kind of just perused through it in brief. It looks like what they're really targeting are some of these companies. You mentioned Disney, but Disney Character Voices is the arm of Disney that employs character actors to do voice acting for others. And so,
Hmm.
as an indie studio, I might hire Disney Character Voices for a particular voice, and they'll assign an employee, a
Yeah.
voice actor to work on my game.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
it looks like what this is targeting is some of these bigger houses that have had agreements in place for over 20 years,
Hmm.
and
Well, I think
they're
these.
looking to see they're seeking to update these. And so I think that we only see these companies because these are some of the companies that have been around forever.
Well, and I think this is who the union is really trying to negotiate with too, because
Yeah.
clearly these are the biggest players, and if they can set a standard contract with these companies, then other companies that are still large but aren't necessarily these companies, they're going to at least have precedent to say, hey, this is the agreement we've got with these other companies. This is what we're going to enforce with you guys as well too. So it's kind of a representative thing. So which
Oh
is
yeah.
kind of an interesting strategy in that clearly the union has a big advantage to targeting these particular companies, but these companies are almost inadvertently negotiating on behalf or supporting their competitors out there that aren't necessarily listed here. So they're fighting for better rates, but they're also fighting for better rates for their competitors too. So it's a kind of a weird setup from the management side.
Yeah. I think again, just like with anytime you hear news about union actions, we see the heavily publicized bit and we see the press releases, but there's
Hmm.
always something else interesting going on behind the scenes. And I
Hmm.
think there's definitely we're seeing this, but there's something we're not seeing, and there's something that's not really being published for
Yeah,
us to be able to look at. So
I think it would
it'll
be
be interesting
naive
to
to
see where
say
this goes.
these are the itty bitty voice actors fighting back against the game monoliths. I think that's a narrative that the union loves, but is probably not exactly the truth.
I agree.
But
I agree.
anyway, I mean, we'll see. What's going to be kind of interesting though, if there is an extended job action, how does this affect, like, is these companies all have games that are in various stages of development and are probably going to need voice acting soon for them. Like, it's the kind of thing that I think voice acting is kind of thing that probably has a level of delayability to it. So if there is job action, these companies can probably funnel resources into different types of development for the interim. Get even just story writers, get animation, get game systems, netcode, all that kind of good stuff they can still work on. But that's only going to last for a little while. Eventually, you have to get someone in the studio and getting those voices down. So it's going to be kind of interesting what's going to happen when that pinch actually comes to fruition. Like, or especially games that might have had voice acting talent right up until the 21st, and then have to stop in the middle of recording sessions while the job
Right.
action happens.
Right. We'll see. I mean, hopefully this won't drag on too long because I we know publishers and they won't want to wait for something silly like this. They'll just find a way around it.
It'll be interesting to see what the shakeout is if it's long though too. Like this is the SAG is obviously, or this arm of the SAG is actually, it looks like it's an American structure. Do companies start looking internationally for voice talent, or do we start to see a bit of a pullback in voice acting, and you see a little bit more written story in modern games? Or it'll be, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what patterns we could see here.
Yeah, I mean, we had the Screenwriters Guild strikes, and they found ways to get writing done without those. So I think if you have a game that has been largely completed, that is dependent on voice acting, and maybe the voice actors that you had chosen fell away, I think that what you might find is that you just find different character actors for that. If the game is early along in the development and the publishers anticipate a really long dry spell, maybe those games will take a different turn and they won't have the voice acting. I think that you'll see a variety of things. But given the development timelines for games, and depending on how long the strike lasts, it's super hard to predict, to me, what will actually happen.
The other interesting effect that could come from it is you might get some of those some of the bigger name video game voice actors, like your Nolan Norths or and so forth, that might start throwing their work into more indie games, like, because clearly, or other companies that aren't having job action taken against them. So you might actually see a little bit of a boost for indie developers in that they can get some premium talent, maybe a little bit cheaper, or at least available, whereas whereas bigger companies would normally be consuming that. So anyway, it'll be an interesting time. We'll keep an eye on how that shakes out. So anyway, so we're going to move on to just the quick mentions here. I just wanted to put a quick note in here where we're obviously approaching Halloween, and MMOs have noticed. We've got we'll have links in the show notes to the descriptions for all these, but we're starting to see Halloween events launching. Obviously, we talked about the Guild Wars 2 Mad King event. World of Warcraft is starting their Hallow's End event they've been doing for basically ever. Final Fantasy XIV starting up in the All Saints Wake. ESO runs a festival called the Witches Festival. Lord of the Rings Online is doing the Harvest Festival, which they've done forever. That's super fun, actually. Going into the Hobbit area, they have a little Hobbit haunted hole that you go through, and it's a little bit of a mini maze and everything. It's very good. I like that one. And WildStar also is kicking off Shades Eve, and there's more as well too. These are just the ones that I've come across in my various feeds and travels. So check those out if you're into it. How about you, Jason? In your MMO history, has there been any Halloween events that have kind of jumped out for you?
Hallow's End, I do remember when I played WoW. That was a pretty fun one to witness, but it's been honestly, nothing lives up to the first Mad King event that happened during the first Halloween that Guild Wars had. That is kind of the gold standard for me. We've already seen a lot of news go around for Guild Wars' Mad King event for this year. They've already had some patches out for it that we've talked about a little bit, and otherwise, none of the other none of the others really stood out too much for me. You know, I participated in a couple of the Harvest festivals when I played Lord of the Rings Online,
Mhm.
and those were fine and fun. But I think the Mad King definitely is the
Yeah.
one that has stuck in my mind. Like, man, what have I done in Halloween in an MMO? Oh, Mad King, Mad King for sure.
And when you get talking about voice acting too, the voice acting that they put into the Mad King character, as you're just hanging around in Lion's Arch and events start to take off, in that I think they really nailed the insane, larger than life, megalomaniac
Oh yes,
character brilliantly with that. I love the Mad King's voice booming over Lion's Arch. It's really cool.
the forever troublemaker that he is. Yes.
Yeah. So, anyway, so check out the Halloween's events. If there's a Halloween event out there for the game that you're playing these days, send us an email to mmo.reporter@gmail.com and let us know what your favorites are. What Halloween events you've enjoyed in the past. Another quick note here. This is actually more interesting to me just because it's a game that's graduating from early access on Steam into an actual release. Like, it's an actual finished game. Nebula Online is releasing on November 3rd from early Steam access. This is kind of a Eve Online inspired MMO that's the original tagline when they ran their Kickstarter quite a while ago was that they were building a game to correct the mistakes of Eve Online. We'll see if that actually does it, but it's a buy-to-play game. It's actually it's $5.50 Canadian, so I imagine that puts it at about $5 American or so. So you're not exactly breaking the bank to get into it, but it looks not bad. I mean, to me it looks like something that's definitely worth the $5 to jump in and check out at least. I don't know. I think that could be cool.
I think that it's great that they're finally going for a release. You know, a lot of they didn't have as successful of a campaign as they wanted. I think here it's fair to say with Nebula Online, but they've still pushed through. They've done something that they're clearly proud of. They're releasing their game. That shows a level of drive. You know, I'm almost willing to just give them $5 on that faith alone and go, you clearly believe in this. What have you guys put together?
Thanks for finishing something.
Yeah, thank you for actually doing the thing that we would like to see all the game developers do. You know,
Yeah,
build
I
your
mean,
product, release it, even if it's not what you want, patch it later, make a new version. You know,
early access is unfortunately earning us terrible reputation of basically a space where games go to collect a little bit of money and then die. So
yeah, you know, we see it over and over. There's another MMO that I've heard about recently, ironically, because I was looking again at Firefall after a very long time. Have you ever heard of Project Genome, Bill?
yes, I've heard a little bit of Project Genome.
Well, it finally made it into early access, and there's a couple people out there on YouTube that got access to the early access and played it, and they're not saying very kind things. And so I agree with you. You know, this kind of coming back around here, early access is become a huge crutch for these developers who maybe don't have all of their ideas or their talent or their abilities fleshed out in their studio that they need to be able to pull off their ambitions.
It's unfortunate because early access is a
Yeah.
great idea. Like the having a platform for small developers or indie developers to really kind of stand on and get a little bit of traction for their game on a major platform like Steam is important. But unfortunately, there's almost a little bit of marketing work that I think Valve has to do with this to try to cleanse the reputation of early access as being this place that games go with great ideas and then die shortly after. Like they really need, I think, to sell some of the success stories that have come out of early access, like the releases, and hopefully Nebula Online is one of them.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. You know, they could do some work between both like their green light process and their early access process to maybe define a little better what it means to be in this state. And not that I typically ever advocate the stick approach, but maybe you need a little bit of consequence for when you're going into early access and you're not really delivering on what the community ought to expect out of that platform.
Yeah, you'd think there'd be a little bit of self-direction there, but I mean, when you're a small development house, especially if you're trying a first attempt at game development, yeah, there's probably some services that Valve and Steam could like curative or curation resources that could be thrown towards those companies to help keep them on the track.
Yeah, Valve's taken a very hands-off approach by and large to the curation
Yeah.
of Steam, and that is a double-edged sword, as
Yeah.
we see in other uncurated marketplaces. So
Yeah, it's a great principle, but at the same time, it also it's inviting some crap to come through.
But yes, kudos to the Nebula Online team. They have managed to release their game, so congratulations to them.
Mhm.
I think I'll play it at least for a few hours, and so I think that's worth $5 to me. I'll be picking that
Yep.
one up for sure and spending a little bit of time in that game.
Yeah, yeah. And then finally here, just wanted to make a quick note. There's been a bit of a controversy storm around David Brevik recently. He put out a very cryptic tweet implying that he's stepped onto some kind of action RPG as an advisor, and everyone in the world latched onto that and said, "Oh God, this is Diablo 4. It's going to happen. They're getting the band back together." No, it's not actually Diablo 4. It's not bad though. It looks like he's attached to Path of Exile, as Path of Exile is working towards its Chinese release. So, Path of Exile is a game I've tried a bit before. I've put probably a couple of good solid nights of play into it, and it's not bad. Like if you're looking for a action RPG that's definitely in that Diablo vein, but maybe has more of a kind of a big world feel to it, Path of Exile is a really good choice. I went into it expecting to be disappointed and playing something that felt cheap, but it was very good. I was impressed.
Yeah, I think when Blizzard made the choices that they did with Diablo 3, there was a group of hardcore fans of the way that Diablo 2 behaved, which Diablo 3 is along the same vein, but still very different. Path of Exile is more true to those roots while innovating in different areas. So if you were the kind of player that enjoyed playing the old school games, you're going to be very, very, very happy with Path of Exile. I will say the only thing that was daunting to me was just how complex that game is.
Yes.
It's a little hard to play as a casual player. But
I found it easy to jump in, but the skill system for it is, and kind of the leveling system is this gigantic web of abilities that's just huge.
yes,
And it's not really clear. Like, I mean, I'm sure they want to say that there's no wrong path or anything like that, but there's not really a lot to tell you what abilities play off nicely with other abilities or anything like that. So it's a lot of complexity with very little explanation.
that is completely true. If you are willing to jump in and sort of just play around and have a good time with the game and not become too invested, you're easily able to do those things. But it does take a lot of time and effort, and there are build guides online, and there are tools that community members have made to assist with that in Path of Exile. But if you aren't willing to spend a very long time going through all of that and determining what you want to do for a build, you will not get to the pinnacle of the things that you can achieve in that game.
Yeah.
We have some Path of Exile going on in this house on a pretty regular basis, and I will say that some of the shenanigans that I see Sammy do over here at his computer in Path of Exile, I just kind of look at the explosion of effects, and I think to myself, what have you done? Then I ask him to look at the tech tree, and he kind of shows me the build that he's made, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's just insane. How did you ever come up with this crazy stuff? But that's what he does.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. That's definitely check it out. So David Brevik attaching himself to Path of Exile after moving on from Marvel Heroes, and obviously being one of the early Diablo guys. He's really done a pretty good journey through the action RPG. So this will be cool. I hope he adds to Path of Exile.
Yeah, I'm excited. He could have quite a future working with them, and maybe we'll see even him work on another game with them. That would be really interesting.
No, that'd be crazy talk. Hint, hint. So
I'm a fan of that.
yeah. Anyway, so that's about that's all the news that we've got for this week. What do you think, Jason? What do you think you're going to be jumping into this week? What kind of games are you going to play?
I'm gonna feed my addiction here and just get right back into Guild Wars. Start hanging out with the crazy Mad King this week.
Yeah.
Keep working on my gliding masteries and try to get that done. I'm really hoping that I can have myself up to speed on that by the time that the next season 3 episode launches. That's a goal of mine. So I'm pushing forward with that, and I think that's all that I'm going to be able to have time for this week.
All I want for Christmas is a new Living Story chapter.
And Civ 6.
And Civ 6, yeah. So that's my plan this week. I do have some Guild Wars 2 on my plate that I plan on playing. I probably will do some World of Warcraft as well. Civ 6 is officially out as of this moment. I think probably within the last hour or so. So I'll be jumping into that and hopefully get some time in there this weekend. All this talk about Path of Exile, though, has really got me thinking that I might even fire that up again and do some crazy builds. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like I said, Chris orbiting the planet Neptune, defending all of humanity there. So that's what he'll be up to. I imagine he'll give us a rundown of that when he returns next week. So in the meantime, if you're looking to get a hold of us, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do that. You can visit us over at MMOreporter.com as kind of the central hub for everything MMO Reporter. You can check out all of our brother and sister podcasts over there, like Loja Reporter, Guild Wars Reporter, Happy Hearthstone, and a whole bunch more. You can send us an email to mmo.reporter@gmail.com. You can visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/MMO-reporter. You can tweet at any of the MMO reporters, either at MMO_reporter for Chris or at MMO Bill for yours truly. Jason, if anyone wants to tweet at you, is there a place that they can throw their tweets?
Yeah, you can tweet at me at TurboSpark if you really want to, and I do occasionally check my Twitter, although I am not the most active Twitter user.
Right on. Thank you. You can also give us a call at 616-666-6778, 616-666-6778 to leave us a voicemail. If you send us a voicemail that's less than 50% swears, we'll probably put it on the show. We would love to do that, and I think Chris would love to edit that, so that would be fantastic. Tell us your thoughts on just about anything we've said in the show. We'd love to hear from you on that. You can check out our all of our videos over on youtube.com/MMO Reporter Network. We've got all of our old PAX stuff, which where you'll be able to actually find Jason. You want to see him in his sparkling smile. You can check out our PAX 2015 videos. I believe you're in the 2014 videos as well, right?
Yeah, 2014, 2015, and I did a couple for here this year as well. So I'm out there on the YouTubes.
Right on. And if you're liking what you hear and you want us to throw us a couple bucks to help us keep the lights on at MMO Reporter, you can visit us over at patreon.com/MMO Reporter. Or if you're not a Patreon kind of person, head over to MMOreporter.com/support, and we'll have some other ways for you to shower us with dollar bill love. So anyway, that, I believe, is a show for us. Jason, thank you so much. I think we used to have someone else on this show, like a Carl or a Kyle or I don't know. Anyway, I don't know that anyone even remembers that guy anymore. You were fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Bill, you're super welcome. It was great having a nice chat with you here, and hopefully we'll hear from Chris and make sure that he hasn't lost his way back from Neptune. That would be tragedy if I were ever to have to be on the show again for any reason.
He's a capable pilot. I think he can handle it. And also, thanks.
I think so.
thanks everyone for tuning in and listening. We love that you actually want to hear our thoughts on all this stuff. It was fantastic fun talking with you tonight, and we hope to see you in game.
Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter.
Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts at MMOreporter.com or by clicking on any of the links here. And please check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMOreporter. Thanks, everyone, and see you in game.